I would say Diablo 4 keeps catching stray blows, but as the Titan it currently is for all the wrong reasons, the game continues lumbering into huge, fatal hits. Asmongold truly said it best during the last Path of Exile 2 gameplay showcase.
Does it make you mad how bad Diablo 4 is compared to this? Yes! Yes! This is incredible. I don't know what to say. Like, how is this, like, how is it that, how? What? How is this? This is just insane. They make video games. That's what's so crazy about it.
As is often the case with Asmon, he's right. He's completely right. What in the world has Blizzard done with Diablo 4? Instead of innovating, instead of moving forward and being the progressive company they say they strive to be, D4 seems to leap backward in numerous ways, or simply disregard ARPG and general gaming advances in favor of what its community and development team call simplicity for the common man. After all, Diablo 4 needs to be playable by a dude who works 3 jobs, has 11 wives, and is a present parent to 30 children. Is that really true? Or does Blizzard just not know how to design a game anymore? This video will delve into multiple areas where in present-day ARPGs like Path of Exile 1, Last Epoch, Path of Exile 2, and heavens above, even Diablo Immortal succeed and Diablo 4 fails. Yes, even the money pit game of Diablo Immortal wins out in multiple areas where D4 falls flat. Do note, most of the examples will focus on the future and thusly revolve around D4 and PoE 2. Aesthetic? Yep. Boss fights? Oh, yes. Itemization? You know it. Character customization? Of course. Social features? Definitely. Also remember, PoE 2 is in its alpha, and according to some defiant D4 defenders, this means it should 100% have less content and development than any other game before it, just like the wizened Diablo 4. Next, it will outline what exactly I posit many others believe about the development of Diablo 4 and its greater impact on the gaming and ARPG community. This isn't a hot take, but it's a take that will infuriate a substantial number of heroes of Sanctuary out there. Finally, it will conclude with what the future of Diablo 4 will hold. Despite my distaste for the game, I cannot deny the effect it has had on me, all those dudes with 10 wives and 70 children, and the world round of video games. It may have been Blizzard's fastest selling game of all time, but it is far from its best. Ask anyone. Seriously, do it. My fellow exiles and new viewers, I'm Talkative Try. On this channel, we talk all things Path of Exile, its development, and its competitors. If you like this content, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. More on how you can support at the end. We are so close to 10,000 subscribers. Now, let's get to it. Presently, we are going to focus on 5 areas wherein Diablo 4 easily loses out against its primary competitors. In all 5 of these areas, I posit D4 should have been innovative or forward-thinking, not regressive or downright janky in today's gaming era. Some of the areas are so unbelievably simple, I'm confused as to why they are not present in a game like Diablo 4. Others are obviously deeper and incredibly more difficult to solve. Let's leap into the aesthetics of Diablo 4. Immediately, you might be thinking D4 is beautifully designed. Its environments and sounds, after all, are spectacles to behold. However, that's it. There are plenty of other areas wherein it obviously falls short. One big shortfall are the animations, especially for monsters. Boss rigging, simple skeletons, the goatmen, they are all janky, choppy even, and lead to a very arcadey feel while playing. Match that together with the screen clogging damage numbers and status effects, and you have yourself a screen entirely devoid of meaning. This also happens in games like Path of Exile, wherein you can juice your maps to absolute maximum, but therein the animations are smoother, especially for monsters. Damage numbers don't litter the entire screen, and status effects are entirely tracked by your intuition and character building. The impetus is on the player to understand what they're inflicting based on how they've built their character, not a massive yellow word hovering above a group of monsters 10 times over. On a completely separate note, item icons in D4 are near meaningless. The art is tiny and uninteresting. Along that vein, while the environments and some monsters might look good, they are incredibly repetitive. Monster diversity is non-existent. The same terrains are used over and over, and one of D4's only truly unique areas, Hell, is only used once in the campaign and once more in the Uber Lilith fight. Path of Exile 2 especially clears Diablo 4 here, and it's in alpha. Animations are exceptional for characters and monsters. Item icons are crisp and meaningful. Enemies are incredibly diverse, and so are environments. There's not an open world of 5 simple terrain types. There's a branching 6-act campaign and sprawling endgame with over 100 distinct areas. That's huge in a deceptively repetitive genre like ARPGs. Now for big ticket boss fights. Something that should be formulaic and should be a sphere of design easily tackled by the likes of Blizzard. From what I've seen and heard, they do a decent job with World of Warcraft boss design, but the bosses in Diablo 4 are absolutely horrible in all regards. Even Diablo Immortal has superior boss design. It's true. Look, watch. It's incredible. Their mechanics are uninspiring. Some literally just swing their sword a few different ways or repeat the same 2 abilities on timers. Others have insta-kills that don't have proper hitboxes. Asmongold has expressed over and over these few points. Their animations, aside from Uber Lilith, are not awesome. Boss fights should be awesome and fear-inducing. Audio is almost non-existent in boss fights. There's no dialogue, very few instances of special music, and mechanics lack unique sound effects. Boss loot is also not special. Almost all the items you find on bosses, you can find in the open world or in dungeons. There are no non-cosmetic chase items attached to bosses. Accessing bosses is also abysmal. Some require you to farm the open world. Some require you to farm dungeons. Some require you to farm absolutely everything, and due to the tiny trading scene, you have to do it yourself. There's no real freedom here to pursue various ends and bosses, and they're not well interconnected. Path of Exile 1 has already addressed all these issues present in Diablo 4 years ago, and Diablo 4 just decided to drop without including any of these solutions. Path of Exile 2 is doubling down on incredible boss design and shocking the world while doing so. Path of Exile 1 and 2 have inspired boss mechanics, and each boss is truly special. Even similar abilities on paper are distinct and terrifying. For example, the classic Shaper Beam versus the rage-inducing Die Beam from Cirrus, Awakener of Worlds. Path of Exile 1 bosses have smooth animations too. They have special loot tables. They're all interconnected in some way, either by the Atlas or Atlas passive skill tree, or some sort of access fragment. Audio is at the apex of each boss fight, too. Many abilities can be avoided simply by listening to audio cues or special dialogue. Compare that to the silent Lilith in Diablo 4. Then off to PoE 2, wherein bosses are the crux of many showcases. The varied mechanics, the sound design, the area design, the simple, the incredible animations. It wows everyone who watches them, and if they continue with the bossing systems pursued in PoE 1, which they've stated they will likely do, PoE 2 is going to thrash PoE 1 and Diablo 4 with its bosses. Next up, let's ponder on the itemization puzzle of Diablo 4 compared to the currently live Path of Exile and what's meant to come in PoE 2. This is going to be a quick ponder, as there's no real puzzling in D4 with items. There is a clear upgrade path based on which skill you choose to use. There's no variance, or at least very few alternate paths to piece your character together. Plus, the high end of items is quite easy to obtain. There aren't incremental upgrades you can make. There aren't any situations in which you need to solve a real problem with your character to continue progressing. It's simple, but at the same time, it's cluttered. Affixes on items are messy, and plenty of memes have spawned from the unique case in which some meaningless affixes apply, like the "you only deal damage to Goatman on Wednesdays when it's raining," and Diablo actually appears in a Diablo game. It's silly. On top of this, the only form of building an item yourself is re-rolling aspects on it, a process which involves farming gold and spamming the re-roll button at a vendor. No thinking, no strategy, no knowledge, just spam. Compared to PoE 1, wherein you can puzzle your way out of limitless situations by itemizing differently, Putting various uniques together or rolling special influenced rares or strategically crafting a certain piece of gear to accomplish a niche but important goal. The difference is vast. Of course, PoE 1's crafting is way more complex too, and involves a large element of randomization and spamming specific items. This is something PoE 2 seeks to address to allow for greater accessibility, but in the end, greater depth as well. Enter character customization, wherein Diablo 4 wins cosmetically and in the first few minutes of the game, of course, but even then, is it a true win? There's a reason Path of Exile doesn't allow you to customize your character secretly. On character select, you pick your class, hear a bit about them, give them a name, and you're in, on the beach, ready to dance into the action. That's intentional. You're not going to be attached to your character because you made them look like a 70s rock star or a starving inner city dude. You're going to become engrossed in the items they possess, the choices you make throughout your journey, and what monsters you manage to down while piloting them through Path of Exile. In Diablo 4, many characters are built the same. The skill trees are tiny and not webs at all. Their version of the passive skill tree, Paragons, falls short of bringing real power to your character, and there's no extra layer of specialty atop any class. Then there's PoE 1 and PoE 2, wherein the passive skill tree is massive and allows for many choices, many of which provide viable builds. Then the skill gem system, which allows for massive customizability for all skills. And finally, ascendancy classes, ending out the trio of sweeping character customizations. Ascendancies give classes and characters even further identity and choice, pushing the envelope for what you can do to build your character up from where they started at level 1. All three of these are present in PoE 1 and 2. There's no need to drive the dagger further and talk about all the extra layers in PoE 1, from cluster jewels allowing you to make your own skill trees, to the Atlas passive tree, which allows you to sculpt an endgame unique to your account. The differences are flabbergasting. Diablo 4 is superficial, while PoE champions real depth. Finally, let's end this chunky section with a bit of a discussion about social features in Diablo 4, or really the absolute travesty that is the complete lack of socialization in this game. You see, many of the choices they've made leading up to social features seem to be trying to push this game into a direction many avid players of Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Path of Exile, and other ARPGs didn't expect and honestly didn't want too much. Somehow, Blizzard made an open world MMORPG that is almost purely played solo. Trading is an absolute travesty. There's really no reason to truly trade. You can trade items up to rare, but if it's unique or if it contains an aspect, then it's locked to you. This drops the best and rarest items from the trading pool, leading to them being quite difficult if not impossible to deterministically get, and fails to encourage players to trade at all. The economy truly is in shambles. There are outside of game communities that are helping encourage the trade of quite specific items and resources, D4 Trade, which is quite similar to Path of Exile's Mega Trade and Challenge Discord server, the Forbidden Trove or TFT. As usual, leave it to the dedicated ARPG communities to form their own features when a developer is lacking. You also feel super alone when playing Diablo 4. There's no global chat or way to interact with people who aren't in your immediate vicinity, but on your server. Again, there's no need to actually create content that needs to be played with others for a game to feel social. In Path of Exile and Last Epoch, global chats are almost always vibrant at all times. In PoE during League Start, hundreds of global chat channels are bubbling with activity. There's the dreaded Global Chat 1, which is filled with the scum of the earth. There's Global 4040, which is dedicated to freely helping out absolutely anyone with the challenges present in that particular league. During my relatively little amount of time in Last Epoch, the global chat in that game has been vibrant, and every time I have a question, I always get an answer. It's great. Meanwhile, in D4, everything is silent. If you have a guild, you can chat there. If you find someone in the open world, you can try to chat with them between blasting packs, but besides that, there was no easy way to chit-chat with other players, if they're even there. The clan or guild feature is absolutely bare bone. It gives you a chat channel and nothing else of substance. In Path of Exile, guilds have entire hideouts they can share, a chat channel, and a stash they can fill and use to share items with their fellow guild members. The only incentive people currently have to truly interact is sharing ingredients for boss runs, particularly uber durial runs. That's it. In PoE, people share normal map runs, numerous boss runs, domain of timeless conflict rotations, Chayula runs, challenge completions, and much more. The guild stuff not being built out, I can forgive. Trading, I guess I understand given D4's focus isn't really on awesome itemization. However, the fact that there's no global chat and that D4 feels dead, even though there's probably a ton of people online, is wild. It seems like a rather simple ad, but for a company like Blizzard, who built Diablo 4 seemingly on a skeleton of an engine, given the way their stash system is coded, inserting a global chat might somehow allow Diablo 4 players to chat with World of Warcraft ones. You might think this is a silly joke. It is not. I am confident this is possible. More and more, the hidden and not so hidden truths behind Diablo 4's development are becoming clear. While some developers have the freedom to let their product cook and get good, I don't think that was possible for the people behind D4. These developers are in a bad situation, but it's also unfortunate they don't seem capable of learning from both past mistakes in Blizzard's own franchise and all the lessons other games in their space have learned over all these years. Thusly, there are dual factors here, everyone. One, the developers were extremely pressured by executives to push out a new Diablo product, and two, these developers refused to commit vital research and development to ensure their game was the best it could be. Let's tackle both. Diablo 4 was designed to be a product of nearly pure monetary value. The people at Blizzard saw a hole in the market they knew they could fill. Obviously, their audience was hungry for a true Diablo game after the massive uproar caused by the Diablo Immortal fiasco, and with the Diablo name being insanely massive, so large the best ARPG on the market simply called itself a spiritual successor to Diablo 2, with a marketing budget the size of a small country's GDP, Blizzard knew they could draw a gigantic number of buyers. They were right. I'm guessing executives did two huge things. They expedited the release of Diablo 4 and ensured it was outwardly as accessible as possible to the greater gaming community. The game was released too early. Lots of content and features were missing on launch, and the team did not have a plan for running the live game. Stashes were not feasible for people who played the game past the campaign. Only one true endgame boss existed, Uber Lilith, and her fight was broken and confuddled many who attempted it. Hardcore was an absolute mess, and constant disconnects or bugs led to some hilarious but depressing deaths. Items just weren't exciting, and you were shoehorned into a certain path based on the skill you chose. The puzzling element of solving your character just wasn't there. The horse was janky, the open world was empty, no social features existed, Uber uniques were basically non-existent, balance changes were all over the place. There was just a lot to be done. But regardless, D4 was pushed to production. Next up, the development team pitched depth in interviews and showcases, but built the game to be simple and cluttered once explored. Statistics and items were deep, but there were tons of repetitive affixes. The skill system was also straightforward, leading to very little true build variety, especially with shoehorned aspects. Endgame revolved around pushing dungeons and rerolling for aspects hundreds and hundreds of times for mounds of gold. All these ideas weren't focused on, as they didn't matter to the masses or the executives. What obviously was focused on was the campaign, which was actually pretty good, but only pushed on players a single time. Then, it's just pure grind in the open world and in dungeons. That campaign experience is great the first time, and it's what many of the buy and play players fixated on, which probably pleased the executives greatly. These gamers buy the game, play it, and leave. They are not attached, they are not avid addicts like some of us, and they do not complain or uproar when the game turns out to be broken or shallow. That's completely fine, but it's not what people were expecting or, honestly, promised by the team behind D4. How could all of this happen, especially when Blizzard has 4 previous Diablo titles behind it? Diablo, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and Diablo Immortal. Mistakes made in previous games or all the lessons learned seem to be completely ignored. Alongside these Blizzard-forged titles, there was also plenty of competition to take a gander at. Path of Exile has been in public development since 2010. They've had numerous fumbles and a ton of lessons learned in the ARPG genre. Why not take the best from PoE and implement it into D4? Heck, why not take the absolute basics and do that? That's what Last Epoch did, and that's another title Blizzard could have looked at if they did actual research and development. Given the state of Diablo 4's launch and its current timeline for changes and fixes, it's clear that did not happen. Absolutely all of that being said, where in the world do Diablo 4 and Blizzard go from here? Well, they seem to be doing research and development in real time. Who would have thought players wanted more stash space in a game that should be about getting new awesome items? Anyone who has ever played an ARPG before. Who would have thought players would want items with more meaningful and impactful affixes than deal 15% increased damage when you're smacking it from behind and holding a flaming rapier of demon slaying? Anyone who has ever looked at items in a beloved ARPG before. Who would have thought players would like an endgame system that involves popping huge packs of monsters, fighting well-built bosses, and forging compelling items? Anyone who has ever played the endgame or talked to someone who has played the endgame of an ARPG before. All of these concepts are being actively pursued by Blizzard. They are finally committing some proper research and development 6 months after the release of their game. Itemization 2.0 is already on the way. Leaderboards are en route. A possible $100 expansion is coming too. Wait, let's not dive into that. I am extremely doubtful Diablo 4 will ever reach the level of Path of Exile 1, Path of Exile 2, or Last Epoch. The people and leadership behind Diablo 4 don't seem to understand the space or just don't want to build the best version of their game possible. They lust to perfectly construct the most profitable product possible. The other games I constantly mention in this video do not pursue that end. They craft the game first, and the money follows. If the long ago legendary Blizzard and Diablo names were not attached to Diablo 4, it would have faltered and died a swift death. With the backing of all Blizzard's money and the attempt at mass market appeal, they are trying their best to add layers to the skeleton that is Diablo 4. Will they succeed? Honestly, I hope so for all the people who stepped into the D4 trap and longed for something greater. Am I confident in Blizzard's ability to succeed in the face of all these other great titles and developers? No, not anymore. But what did you think, fellow exiles and heroes of YouTube? Do you agree that games like Path of Exile 1, PoE 2, and Last Epoch are made by gamers who love to puzzle it out, while Diablo 4 was made to make a sequel for Diablo 3? Let me and everyone else know in the comments. Anyways, that's all for this video. Tala Moana, Exile.